Games that traumatized me. These are not even horror games. These are regular games that either scared the heck out of me for some stupid reason or left a lasting emotional or psychological imprint on me. Now, this is not that serious. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna go through this chronologically, starting with the Sega Genesis in my early childhood. Altered Beast. This is one of my favorite games on the Genesis. It always has been. I loved this game as a small child, even though it gave me nightmares. Now, why did it give me nightmares? It has nothing to do with the headless demons and ghouls and monsters that you're fighting throughout the game. No, it was these cutscenes in between levels. These cutscenes where you see this ominous ring with some sort of creepy image inside. You hear this spooky music in the background. In particular though, it was the one after level 2. Take a look at this. Now, first of all, it looks like somebody's being crucified. And then in the background, we see Neff, who is the villain of the game, and he's basically Satan, but from a different mythology. He's standing in front of this smoky cauldron doing something in front of this person hanging on a cross. You see creepy stuff in the background. Here's the thing though, is as creepy as that is on its own, in my mind as a kid, I saw this picture differently. I don't know if it was just my young mind, if I was stupid, or if it was the, little bit blurrier CRT TV I was playing it on. But I thought somebody was actually in this pot being boiled alive and melting. And it just put this image of my mind, this fear in my mind. I would lie awake at night thinking about this, how horrible it would be. That was just terrifying. And it just burned that into my mind as a kid. There you go, man. Altered Beast. We got a couple more Genesis games, then we'll move on. Next up is Scooby Doo Mystery. Now, I loved Scooby Doo as a kid. Grew up watching those old 70s original episodes. I remember renting this game at Blockbuster and being so impressed. The visuals and everything, it looked just like the cartoon. The animations were cool, the stories were cool. It was a different kind of game. I hadn't played a game like this before. It's sort of almost a point and click adventure game, but you can also walk around on the screen and go from area to area. Very different and very cool. I just loved the animation, the production values, but there are 2 episodes you can choose from in this game, and one of them was just way too much for me to handle. So you're at this hotel, this sort of ski resort place, and everybody's left except for the owner, right? And apparently the chef. Apparently this place was built upon Native American burial grounds, and it's kind of dark. But apparently this ghost of this Native American chief is running around inside this building, scaring people away. As you can see right here, that monster just scared grandma away. But then you're going around doing your thing for a few minutes. You come to the hallway, and then Scooby and Shaggy are just terrified. It just flashes on the screen, their terrified faces. And then guess what? The monster comes and starts chasing you. And oh man, I was just as terrified as Scooby and Shaggy in that animation, let me tell you. Then the monster starts chasing you around in classic Scooby-Doo fashion, right? You go in one door, you come out another. It's this whole cartoony chase sequence, but man, no, I was freaking out. I was not having it. I was done. I turned it off so fast. The other episode wasn't so scary, at least what I played of it. But yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's a silly cartoon game, but I was like 6 at the time maybe, and everything scared me back then. We got one more on the Genesis, the most random one of all. Justice League Task Force. This is another one I rented at Blockbuster, and I was so excited to play this game. It was a fighting game with all my favorite DC superheroes. You could be Superman and Batman and the Flash and Wonder Woman and all these characters. And I loved fighting games. I loved Street Fighter, and this was going to be amazing. Turns out the game's not really amazing. It's not a very good game. Still kind of an interesting curiosity if you're a DC fan, but no, I turned this game on and I got like the greatest jump scare of my life. This is what you see when you boot up the game.
You will never defeat me. I control the technology. I have the power to control your mind.
Now it's just Darkseid. It's just Darkseid's face, but it looks very ominous. He talks to you in that creepy voice, which I wasn't expecting to hear either. That creepy face with those glowing eyes, I didn't know what it was. I felt like the devil himself was inside the TV, and I turned that thing off so fast. I was like, nope, I cannot do this. I'm not playing this game. I think we ended up taking it back to Blockbuster and they let us rent something else. Yeah, so stupid, but man, that was like such a jump scare. That thing just got me good. Again, I was a small child. I was like 5 or 6. I don't remember. But all right, moving on. We're going to the arcade. This was still in the mid 90s. I was still really young. Mortal Kombat 4. Now, I didn't even really play this game. I never really played the Mortal Kombat games as a kid. The whole machine had this aura about it. And you saw the artwork on the side, this scary looking picture of this dude. Okay, it's fine. What I remember seeing over and over again in this image that was just burned into my mind, walking by this cabinet, you'd always see the game over screen. And the game over screen, there were censored versions of this and there were uncensored versions of this. I'm going to show you the uncensored version now. You lose and you get thrown down the tower. Your person is flailing around in the air as the countdown ticks away. And then splat into a pit of spikes and there's blood everywhere. Seeing that image over and over again, I don't know, it was too intense for my young mind at the time. Now I can laugh about it, but yeah, back then it was like, that is gruesome. That was very gruesome. Compared to the fatalities in the games now, it's nothing. That stuff is nasty these days, but back then though, it was just the thought of helplessly falling down into spikes. It was a bit much. Okay, moving on now. We're jumping ahead to the PS2 generation. Max Payne. Now this one was traumatizing in a different level. This was such a cool game, and if you think back on it, it was famous for the slow motion bullet time effects, diving and shooting people in slow motion, and such a cool game, such a great narrative experience, and it's super fun now after like Alan Wake 2, going back to it and seeing Sam Lake in this role and hearing that, just his signature storytelling. And I digress. The thing that was so traumatizing, if you've ever played the game, then the first 5 minutes or so, the very first scene of the game, you're Max Payne, you're coming home after a day at work, and to your horror, you find that your wife and your baby have been murdered. And you walk into the nursery, your baby's body's lying there on the floor all bloody, and then you go and find your wife's corpse laying on the bed all bloody, and Max is just holding her and crying, and oh man, what a way to start a game. Like, oh my gosh, that was so emotional and so messed up. Oh man, yeah, that was just traumatizing on a more emotional level, especially at the age I was at. It wasn't like, oh, you can't look. It was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. This is so horrible. And then of course it just makes you want to go get revenge on these bad guys, take down these criminals and whatnot. But man, such a gnarly beginning of a game, just so emotional and just dark and messed up. Anyways, yeah, Max Payne. I want to hear about your reaction if you ever played Max Payne. Did you feel the same way? How impactful was that? How hard did that beginning scene hit you? Alright, sticking with that PS2 era, shifting to the Xbox side of things though. Halo. Now this is weird, right? This is weird. Hear me out. Halo is another one of my favorite games of all time. Alright, I spent so many hours playing Halo with friends, and I've talked about this a million times in other videos. Why the heck would Halo be traumatic? Minor spoilers, I guess, but you're going through the campaign mode, you're just blasting aliens, it's all sci-fi fun and action and not too serious, right? It's just a war against these aliens that look like they could have come out of some comic book or something, but you get to the end of level 6 and things take a very dark, very surprising and spooky turn. I'm talking about the Flood. The Flood is this parasitic race that takes over humans and aliens alike, and they turn them into these zombies, basically. You get to level 7, the library, and man, this was like the scariest thing I had ever tried to play by myself. Again, not a horror game, but you're suddenly in this dark place, full of all these zombies coming at you from everywhere, really grotesque looking stuff. You got kind of human ones with their head off on their shoulder growing out and still carrying shotguns, dragging them around and shooting at you. You got these little things that I don't even know. They remind me of like the head crabs from Half-Life though. You got these wobbly, like bubbly looking guys who just move really weird. And I was capturing this footage on the Master Chief Collection on PC. Today it's not scary, but I also feel like playing it on the original Xbox back then, it was scarier. I feel like it was darker, and I feel like the sort of lesser quality graphics actually made it look a little bit more creepy. Still got a certain level of creepiness to it. You're following this Oracle, this little floating robot around who's kind of guiding you through this, and he kind of hums and whistles and laughs in a really unsettling way. And yeah, I still kept dying on this level, but I was having fun though. Anyways, absolutely love Halo. I never did go past that level on my own though, partly because I was so nervous, but partly because I kept dying. So me and my buddy ended up co-oping the whole game together, and that was even better. We went on to co-op the first 3 Halo games together as they came out, and those were some amazing times, so it all worked out for the best. But man, yeah dude, the library scared the ever-living heck out of me. Moving on to the PS3, Xbox 360 generation, I'm gonna say Bioshock. Bioshock is like the most horror game that's not a horror game, if you know what I'm saying. And it has a really, really amazing, really fascinating kind of world to it. You know, the Rapture, this underwater city. It's so dark and so gruesome and so twisted. The backstory is crazy, and it really is very unique and very creative and just very unsettling though. And I feel like, here's the thing, I've started to play Bioshock. I've restarted the game like 3 times over the years. Currently I'm like 10 hours into the remastered version. I just have not been able to bring myself to complete it. I think part of it is just that this environment is so nasty and so almost depressing to spend too much time in at once, that it's a game I play for a little bit and then I set it down and don't come back to it for a long time. I come back to it years later, get a little bit further, and then put it down because I think I just don't want to spend a whole lot of time in this Rapture, you know? It's just so dark. There's so many just savage people out there, you know, and just nastiness. I don't know, man. Also, I tend to get lost in this game somehow, even though there's like an arrow guiding you most of the time. I don't know what it is, but I never can bring myself to get through it. And I think part of it is just like the mental exhaustion of being in such a demented place for so long, you know? I want to go do something happy afterwards, but there we go, Bioshock. Along those lines, one of my absolute favorite games of the generation, Fallout 3. This game is a masterpiece. I loved it to death. I played through the whole thing, and I would love to replay it. Actually, I'm not going to show the footage of what I'm talking about here because I didn't want to play through the whole game to get to these parts. But the things that really kind of stood out to me in a sort of a shocking, mind-blowing way that really left an impact on me were the vaults. This game had some crazy vaults. So the vaults, if you haven't played the game, are these underground sort of shelters where people are living to kind of protect themselves from the nuclear devastation that is the wasteland, the world around them. But we come to find out, minor spoilers, you know, the vaults are all really just experiments. They're like human experiments, closed off little environments where people are living in different conditions. And there's one of them that's like a physical experiment where they're doing nasty experiments physically on people. Oh man, that whole vault was just a shocker. That was really kind of disgusting and disturbing, and I'll never forget it. Although I think I've forgotten some of the details, but I just remember blood all over the place, mutated people, just mutilated people. It was nasty. The other one is a psychological experiment that really stood out to me, and it's okay, I'm just going to talk about it because I want to, but spoilers, okay? Spoilers, because I think if you haven't played it, it's a lot more surprising and kind of fascinating to go in blindly and find this. But it's like these people are hooked up to these VR sets and they're living in a simulated reality. They have no idea. They're sitting in these chairs, actually wasting away, dying while they're in this virtual reality. And man, that was just kind of mind-blowing and just really unsettling, and really just cool though. The way they did it was amazing, because you actually go into that simulated reality. It's very meta. It's like a game within the game, and the way they did it was so cool, and I'll never forget it. But that was just like so psychological, and it's a stretch, but I wanted to talk about it. Okay, I was trying to get 10 games for the video. Okay, we got 2 more games. Sticking with that PS3 era, The Last of Us. If you played the game, you know where I'm going, but dude, this was Max Payne all over again. But even, I'm older this time. I have a child of my own this time. And the beginning of The Last of Us, spoiler, but this is the first, 15 minutes of the game. But yeah, your daughter dies tragically. And it's like, yeah, man, Max Payne again, dude. Starting off the game in this tragedy, and of course it sets up the story because, you play as Joel, he loses his daughter. Years later, he sort of becomes this father figure to Ellie and whatever. It's all very beautiful, but man, so tragic. And if you played the game, if you played the sequel, things don't get much happier. Very dark game. Again, traumatizing, yes, but not because of the nasty zombies, none of the gore and suspense and all that. All that's there. But man, I'll never forget just how heartbroken I was in the first 10-15 minutes of the game. Man, I was on the edge of my seat, and I was hurting. And revisiting it, you still get those feels, even though you know what's coming. It's like, Naughty Dog, y'all are some masters of storytelling. Still want an Uncharted 5, by the way. But anyways, okay. Final game on the list, moving to the modern era, or really this came out during the PS4 era, but another completely random one, Undertale. Why the heck would I choose Undertale? What was so traumatizing? What was so traumatic about my experience with Undertale? Well, here's the thing. First time I played Undertale, I really didn't understand the mechanics. I didn't know that you could go the whole game without killing anybody, or that you could kill whoever you wanted. I didn't understand the mechanics very well, or the concept. You play as this kid who finds themselves in this monster world, and you're trying to get home. Well, at the beginning of the game, you're sort of rescued and taken in by Toriel, this motherly figure. She welcomes you into her home. She wants to adopt you, protect you, and take care of you, and raise you as her own child. That's not the point of the game. You're trying to get home to the human world, right? So you're trying to leave. Toriel's trying to stop you and shelter you, and so you have to kind of get in a fight with her. You have to prove yourself that you're okay to go and fend for yourself here. So I was trying to spare her. I was trying to have mercy on her. I was trying not to hurt her. I was trying not to kill her. Nothing was working. Again, I didn't understand the mechanics of the game very well. I end up fighting her, and I end up killing her, sort of accidentally, more or less. And I just felt so bad. I was like, something doesn't feel right about this. This feels really messed up. Like, did I do something wrong here? I didn't know I was going to kill her. I just thought I had to fight her because nothing else was working. But then, yeah, she dies a sad death, and I carry on for a little bit. I saved the game past that, so I can't just redo the battle later. But I end up looking it up and finding that, no, I didn't have to kill her. And in fact, I didn't have to kill anyone. And you could do this whole pacifist run where you're totally peaceful. You get achievements for that or whatever. And I'm like, oh man, do I really want to start the whole game over? And it just took me a long time. It took me a long time to go back and start the game over. But that was it for me though. I felt so much guilt killing Toriel and finding out I didn't have to. And I'll never forget that feeling, just how guilty it made me feel, how sad, how disappointed in myself I was. It's funny how attached you can get to fictional characters, and especially when you have actions that affect their stories, right? Yeah, I'll never forget about that, and I'm so glad I've been able to redeem myself now. But anyways, yeah, man, I just thought this would be a fun video to do. I was like, man, I've had some stupid experiences where I was just like totally traumatized by a game that I shouldn't have been. Has this ever happened to you? I'd love to hear your stories. Were you ever scared out of your mind as a child by something that wasn't scary? Or were you ever like so emotionally struck by a video game? Love to hear your thoughts, and thanks for listening to me ramble on today. This was fun. I will see you soon. Take care. Have a good one.